Welcome to the Sisters in Crime Writers Podcast. Everyone has a unique writing journey, so join us for conversations about those journeys from the writers themselves. This is Julie Henrik as the Executive Director of Sisters in Crime, and I am really delighted to welcome Judy Mohr to the podcast this week. Kiwi Judy L. Mohr is a writer, developmental editor, writing coach, amateur photographer, and science nerd with a keen interest in internet technologies and social media security. Her knowledge ranges from highly effective ways to hide the bodies through to how to improve your SEO rankings for your websites. When she isn't writing, editing, or doing something within the local writing community, she can often be found with a camera in her hand, enjoying the world around her, no doubt scudding for locations to hide the bodies. Shh, don't tell anyone. You can find her crazy adventures on her blog and on Instagram, and all of her information will be in the show notes for this episode. Judy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
So tell us where you're coming from, because people who don't understand what a Kiwi is will love this.
So I'm from New Zealand, Aotearoa, and we call ourselves Kiwis because, of course, our national bird is the flightless kiwi. We call ourselves Kiwis. No, we're not fruits. However, sometimes I do wonder if we are a bit fruity, because we do have quirky ways about us. We say things that are fun. For those of you who are not familiar where on the globe New Zealand is, I will admit New Zealand is often missed off the maps. It's really frustrating, quite annoying. That said, I was watching Monsters, Inc. yesterday with my daughter, and it shows the global map, and there was New Zealand, tucked in right next to Australia. And I'm like, yes, we're on the map. So it is a bit of a joke for us. And we're where Lord of the Rings was filmed all those years ago. So...
Yeah. Yes. And there's a lot of wonderful New Zealand lore and conversations, but Brokenwood Mysteries, for folks who've ever watched that, takes place in New Zealand. And that's a favorite of mine. So it's a beautiful place that I long to visit. But thank you, because you had to wake up extra early to talk to me in my mid-afternoon. So thank you for being here.
Believe it or not, time zone calculations is my, I rely on Google for that.
Yeah, especially with daylight savings time or not, and not everybody doing it at the same time. And here in the United States, we have states that don't do it, and we have cities that, yeah, I know. It's not pretty.
Yeah.
But because of the miracle of technology, we can talk to each other. So I'm going to start this the way I always start these conversations and ask you, when did you first say to yourself, I want to write a book?
I started writing fiction, seriously, taking it sort of writing fiction. I started in 2008. That sounds like a very long time ago. I was studying for my PhD at the time, and I had this dream that just would not let me go. It just wouldn't let me go. And so I thought, you know what? This dream actually sounds really cool. I'll just write it down. And then it kept coming back, and I would get more of the details. And eventually, over the course of that year, it became this release, because I was doing high computational mathematics, fighting with the computer frequently. And I just went, you know what? I'm just going to escape into this writing world. And in 2013, I was doing a postdoctoral research fellowship and decided to my funding was coming to an end. And I went, you know what? I've got it turned out over 1,000 pages of a story sitting there, all single spaced. It wasn't even double spaced, it was single spaced. That is a lot of words.
That's a lot of words.
And I was like, you know what? We're going to see if we can turn this into something and do something with it. That particular story is still sitting in the metaphorical drawer.
Right.
But I have now progressed and I can see, I go back and take a look at some of the stuff that was written all the back then. I'm like, this is not bad. This is actually, there's some really good nuggets here. This is pretty good.
Right. Well, it sounds like there's 4 books in there too. So
it turns out, because I kept adding to it over that time frame between 2008 and 2013, it turns out there's 15 books sitting in that series that's sitting in the metaphorical drawer. Wow.
And so just for my own, what was your PhD in?
It was actually in astronomical instrumentation. So I was studying how stellar light works and how it affects. So if you're using an optical telescope, which is what we've got down at Mount John University Observatory, which is in Tekapo. It's a blessing to be able to go to an observatory and actually take your own measurements, because that's not normal for astronomers. So I'm like, this is so much fun. And I was looking at how the atmosphere is impacting on stellar light with the intention. Now, this is some people are going to go, no, don't do that, to remove the twinkling out of the stars, because it impacts on your stellar imaging. You don't want blurry stars when you're taking photos of stars. You want nice, crystal clear, sharp images. And so that was what my PhD was on. It's so much fun when you're doing things like that. And so I learned how to research. I learned lots of different information. It's like, you're not necessarily an expert in one area. You become an expert in lots of areas very quickly because of it.
Yes. And they feed each other and take you down pathways. I also love, so that's fascinating. And getting a PhD, I admire people who do that so much, because there was a minute where I was like, that would be, but I know. I didn't walk down the path. But I love that in order to sort of release or reset or just be, you wrote 15 novels.
Well, and they were all handwritten while I was doing my PhD. There was no way a computer was going to get hands on my release. I wasn't going to let it happen. I was fighting every day with the computer. No, computer, no, I'm handwriting this thing. And so that was like a lot of notebooks I went through because of it. And I still have them because I was so nostalgic.
Yes, well, I wouldn't get rid of them either. But, I had the privilege of talking to so many people on this podcast. And there are so many writers who will say, when you're stuck, or when you want another part of your brain to unlock, get off the computer, take a pen or a pencil, whatever is better for you, and start handwriting. And it just triggers something different.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah. So was that going to be, was that a mystery? Well, tell me about that opus.
So that particular opus was a high fantasy genre with action adventure and of course the odd mystery to solve, because let's face it, I think mystery, crime, thriller, it bleeds into everything.
Yes.
I would struggle to find a genre that crime or thrillers and mysteries and all of that sort of stuff, I would struggle to find a genre that it hasn't touched.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
No, I agree. I mean, it's a reason people keep reading. It's like, I need to know something. And it can be, are they going to get together at the end if you're reading romance? But there's going to be some twists and turns. I mean, it's still a mystery.
It's a puzzle to solve.
Yeah.
We like puzzles.
You do like puzzles. So taking that opus and learning how to write and finishing it, because that's a huge achievement that most people who say I want to write a book don't get to.
Yeah.
So acknowledging that, but how did you learn how to then, story structure and shaping it and narrative flow and all the rest of the stuff that you also now coach people about?
Yeah.
But how did you sort of develop your craft?
So I'm mathematical to start with. I mean, let's face it, I did high computational mathematics in my PhD. Let's face it. Okay. Mathematics, here we come. So looking at things like story structure, it was just another mathematical puzzle for me to solve. And it's not really formulaic, if you know what I mean. Because especially when you start putting in like all these different story plots, multiple different antagonists, multiple different protagonists, it becomes a bit of a mess in terms of your basic formula. It's not a formula. It's a feel. And I just started, well, let's grab that book and let's grab that one and let's grab that one. And I just basically read and kept reading and kept reading. And I could see the patterns in the story. I could see the patterns in film. Film and television, I have to admit, was a very good learner for me. Not that I write scripts, because anyone who writes scripts for television, film, or theater, my hat goes off to you, because, man, that's a whole other way of writing that I don't totally understand. So totally, if you write that stuff, yeah, go for it. But, all of that stuff that we have about pacing that we get from film or from TV, it totally equates to novel and short story. Totally equates. It's just a different medium. That's all. Yeah. And I just kept learning and learning. And it got to this point where I just knew story structure so well. And I was able to piece like Romancing the Beat from Gwen Hayes and James Scott Bell's The 14 Signposts and Save the Cat. And I was able to look at all these different models and going, oh, you guys are talking all about the same thing. You're just using different terminology. Cool. Yes. That's great.
Yes. But it's helpful to read all those things and come to that understanding and then figure out what's going to work for me. I mean, do I need more beats? Do I need less beats? I mean, but the inciting incident, those sort of things are just such important concepts to understand, but so hard to really wrap your arms around when you start.
Yeah. And that was the other aspect as well, is that I realized very quickly that there is no one way to get there.
Yeah.
Everybody's brain's different. Everybody does things slightly differently. And so we have to be able to prepare to accept the fact that we are all different. And yeah, who cares if it takes you 10 years to write that novel? It's written. Right. That's the important part. It's written. Right. As long as you get there.
As long as you get there. And also just embrace there are a couple of things I always think about that what you did with this first one may not work for the second one, or you may need to try a different way of doing it. And writers make their lives more difficult the more they write. I mean, it would be great if we could all just coast and say, well, nailed that, so let's get another one. But no, you have to add a timeline or a second review or, extra twist or a different genre, because that's the way it goes.
We can.
Or we hope we can.
And yeah, so exactly what you said, what works for one novel, fortunately, doesn't work for the next.
Right.
You're just like, really? Seriously? Why did I do this to myself yet again?
So let's talk about this. When you wrote, you got PhD, all this stuff, and then you're writing and you're saying, okay, I want to get this book out in the world.
Yeah.
how did you come to mysteries? Like, talk to me about sort of the genre and the evolution, or if you consider what you're writing mashups. Tell me about sort of figuring out the journey.
I lean more into the thrillers than
Yeah.
I do mystery specifically. So the way I see the difference between the crime thrillers and the mysteries is that you've got the who done it versus how done it.
Mm-hmm.
So the mystery is you're trying to figure out who did it, where the crime thriller, you know who did it, you're just trying to figure out how to stop them from doing it again. It is a slightly different puzzle that you're trying to solve. And that's where I tend to lean, is in those ones, because I'm an action girl. I like things blowing up. I like body parts flying everywhere. I'm going to admit it. I'm sorry. It's just the way I'm wired. But that's always been there. If I go back to think about what I was reading as a teenager, Michael Crichton books, I was gobbling them up. And like, there's one that still sits. I've actually got to go back and really dissect it at some point, but that was Rising Sun that he wrote, because that one was, it has a crime thriller, but it actually is a police procedural as well. And I remember it so distinctly because it was one of the first books that I had ever seen that had image processing and CCTV imaging in it, although it wasn't called CCTV imaging at the time.
Right, because it was.
So that's why I want to go back and dissect it, because he was talking about technology that we use now. This is all standard police practice now. But yet, it was written, what, in the 1970s?
Maybe the 1980s or nine. I mean, he's been gone a while, and he died fairly young, like 50s.
Yeah.
But Jurassic Park, same thing. He was talking about DNA and bringing back species, and he had a really interesting brain, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And that's kind of how I tend to work, because I have that science background. So anything and everything science-based is going to grab my attention, especially now when we start talking about things that are really happening in today's crime environment. You have rapid DNA testing. You have understanding the difference between touch DNA and other different DNA. And of course, how that's going to impact with fingerprinting. And if you do the wrong thing with the fingerprinting, you're going to destroy certain aspects. You have all the image processing. You have, let's see if we can find people using satellites and using CCTV and camera imaging. Use all of that. And now we have smart cars to add into the mix.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and also,
let's have fun.
because technology is advancing, and yet I think there's an expectation. I'm going to assume that it's the same thing in New Zealand as it is here, where we're watching these true crime and these crime procedurals on television. We just assume that, traffic cam is going to be able to read a license plate or see somebody's features. Like, that may not be able to happen with current technology. Or maybe you're going to say, no, Julie, it actually can happen.
Actually, it can happen. But what I do laugh about is I see those, because I have the image processing background. I will see somebody that in one of those television shows, they go, can you clean that image up a bit and see if you can give me that license plate? And I'm like, dude, there's only 3 pixels in that. There's no way you're going to get a license plate off of 3 pixels.
Right. So that you would need the really high definition picture to even be able to. So yeah. I love talking to people whose brains work differently than mine do. But do you tell me about when you start to write? And I talk about the gravitational pull of an idea where all of a sudden you'll see or read something, and then that becomes, you start with characters and world building and stuff. Do you start with technology or possibility, or do you start with characters? Tell me how you start.
It will depend. There's a variety of different things that happen. Most of the time, it's a scenario that's happened. It might be a character or something involved with that character, and I will piece it together. But it might take a lot of time for me to actually get the idea down. So Dancing in the Purple Rain, which is the novel that came out that I had last year, which is winning awards. I'm so happy about it. I wrote its opening scene in 2018 or thereabouts. And the idea came from, do you remember those internet challenges that we had? There was the Ice Bucket Challenge.
Yes.
There was a pod, I don't know, the one Tide Pod, the ones that you're eating the freaking detergent.
Yeah, and cinnamon and all kinds of, yeah.
But there was this one that it turned out it was a hoax, but it's still, as a parent who was interested in internet security and all that sort of stuff, I was freaking out. And it was called Momo. And it was supposed to be this elongated face that was encouraging youth to commit acts of violence or suicide. As a parent, I was totally freaking out. As a writer, my brain went, "Ooh, candy." And I wrote this scene about how this character was delivering packages of death around a city where there was a lot of security around. And there was brainwashing involved. So I started doing a lot of research about MK Ultra and various different brainwashing tactics and all of these things. But of course, my brain instantly leapt to telepathic abilities. Don't ask me why, but it did. But I was stuck. I couldn't get the idea down. And then COVID hit, and we started getting word about the vaccines and the mRNA vaccines and how they work. And it was like, oh, that's the lie that she's being told. I got it now. And then bam, the story was down.
Wow.
And so it really is a puzzle that we have to solve, because we know our characters are being told a lie, but we have to give plausibility to that lie. Why does this lie work? Why are our characters believing it? And we have to make sure that the readers can understand that this lie could definitely be real.
Right.
It has to be plausible. And so the fact that we had the COVID vaccines working a very specific way, it just suddenly went, oh, now I get it.
Yes.
Now I understand.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if that is really how they worked or not. It was just, we made that leap. And as a society, we were making this leap about the COVID vaccines. So I was able to do that, if that makes any sense.
No, it is. I mean, there are folks that don't believe in the vaccines and have credibility issues. So do you worry that your book is going to give credence to that, or not that?
Well,
that's
no, I'm not worried about that, because that was also, it was one of my concerns that I did have, because I knew that was the instigator. That was the final piece of the puzzle I needed. But I wanted to remove the story away from COVID. It was just the lie. It gave me the lie that my character was being told. So I said, okay, how do I remove this from COVID? Oh, I know. We'll put it into the future.
Yes.
200 years into the future. Okay, so what's going to happen 200 years into the future? Well, okay, we've got global warming. What's going to happen there? Okay, we have a society that is now being very health conscious. What's going to happen with the technology? What is going to do this? And it's just one piece after the other. It just all slowly falls into place as you start to think it through. And then you wonder what complex mess you have created for yourself, and why are you writing this thing?
And the world building for that is intense because
big.
you're making up the rules, but then you have to abide by the rules. Like it's you can't. It's got to make sense for us to sort of understand. Okay, that's what could happen. But
Yeah, and it's not just a matter of making up the rules. The rules, particularly in a science fiction type story, which if we come back to the Michael Crichton stories, because most of them were science fiction based, the rules have to be plausible. They have to be a logical progression based on our current understanding. And where can things go? It's not like fantasy can go magic.
Yes.
Science fiction, no. Telepathy might be considered magic, but we've seen telepathy in a lot of sci-fi films and a lot of science fiction over many years. And it's just, we know with certainty that the human brain only has so much, it only uses so much of its capacity. So if it was able to use significant more, would we have these abilities?
Right?
We don't know.
Yeah. So you're kind of mashing up different genres using the thriller sort of.
The thriller and crime as my like overall arching threads, yeah. But it's kind of coming into different ways. Yeah.
Which Michael Crichton did. I mean, that was, most of his books did that. So was this, when you talk about writing, your face lights up. I mean, and you talk about this puzzle, was this, fun thing to work on? What, did it go quickly? Did you put it aside for a while, or talk to me?
Oh, it's totally fun. Do I put it aside for a while? No. I'm obsessed now. I think most of us who have been writing for a particular period of time, I think we can all appreciate and understand how it gets into our blood, and we can't let it go. I remember years ago, my husband went through, it's a roller coaster, massive ups, massive downs.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of writers, a lot of creatives in general will understand that. And I remember my husband, he's like, if this is getting you down so much, why don't you quit? I blew up. I was like, how dare you even suggest something? And it's because it is in my blood now. I can't walk away from it. This is something that is just who I am. It's how I process the world. And that's the reality as well, is that I use writing to help me process the cuckoo of the world, because it is freaking cuckoo, and it's getting more cuckoo by the minute.
So do you talk to me about your process? You came up with this idea, COVID vaccines kind of left you where you did here. Once you got the idea that you're like, okay, here's the book, here's the journey I'm going to take this character on. Do you plot it, or do you pants it? I'm a pantser,
but I have learned over the years that there is a certain amount of plotting that has to happen so the pantser doesn't go completely, utterly off the rails and writes themselves into a corner that they can't get out of. So over the years, I've worked out that there are certain beat points within a story that we just kind of need to know. It's a bit like what James Scott Bell talks about when he talks about writing his roadmap, how he has his 14 signposts and he's writing to the signpost. He has no idea what happens in between, but he's writing to it. And it's the same idea that I have, but I think I have a few less points. I always know what my inciting event is. I always know my main antagonist, because long form stories tend to have more than one antagonist anyway. But I always know what my main antagonist is capable of.
Okay.
I don't necessarily know what my B story is until I get to the all is lost moment where the carpet's been ripped out from underneath my protagonist and everything's gone to hell. But I will have a sense of what that moment is. What will really hurt for my character? What What moment can make them completely crumble and have to go through this entire crucible to actually get to the other side? And I will also have a sense of what I want that final image in this story to be. But that's partly because I know what the opening scene might be, and the final image is normally a mirror of the two. And so I will have a couple of these beat points. But most of the time, it's I will understand how my character will behave in response to certain actions. And then I get that first draft down, and that first draft, it might only be 10,000 words. It may not be it could be very much a skeleton. And in some cases, it just looks like bullet point. It really does read like barf on paper because I have barfed it up.
Yeah.
And then I sit down and go, okay, what have I got? Where do I need to go? And let's start really fleshing it out. And then I get to what I call an editorial synopsis. So for anyone who's doing traditional publication, you'll understand the pain of a submission synopsis, trying to write that, 600 words?
Yeah. Yes, or it can vary depending on who the publisher is or who wants it. And, yes, painful.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those, but I do understand the pain of writing them. But an editorial synopsis is contained as much detail as you need. So the plotters might have an opus of their own. The pantsers have maybe just a couple of beat points, a couple of bullet points. For me, I will occasionally have a scene because I write out of order as well. So I will see scenes in different orders and I'll be like, where does that scene go? Okay, we'll put it into the editorial synopsis here. And as I carry in and actually flesh out the story, I'm like, oh, that scene's in the wrong spot. Keep moving it until it finds its right place. And it goes from there. So basically, it just keeps expanding. And eventually I get to a point where I have a full story. And then I put myself through a developmental edit. I'm a developmental editor. That's my jam. That's what I do. And I will treat myself like I'm my own client. It's gone into the metaphorical drawer temporarily so I can gain some emotional distance. And then I will read it and do the full developmental edit like I would on any client and make that manuscript bleed.
So, Judy, I think it's helpful for people to know the difference between like copy editing and a developmental edit because it's you talk about, because it is that taking the clay and helping the writer shape it into something that the writer wants it to be shaped into. So if it's going to be a vase, it's going to be a vase, but right now it's a platter. So there's some work that needs to be done, right? It's that kind of conversation.
Yeah. So developmental editing is probably the form of editing that all of us will eventually develop some skills on because it is the one that takes what is on the page and turns it into a story. Because sometimes what we have is just a bunch of events that make no sense. There's no connection. There's no connecting flesh. But developmental editing also looks at how the character is portrayed. Is the character behaving the way they would expect? And if they aren't behaving the way someone would expect, is there a reason behind it? Mm-hmm. You might look at the way they speak. You might look at the show versus tell conundrum. That one's always fun. You are looking at the actual overall story structure. Is it beating? Is it pacing well? Have I written a snooze fest? Or have I written something that's going to give everyone whiplash because it's moving so fast? Have I got the right amount of backstory? Have I put the backstory in the right place? Because that's also a problem. Like, we might have this backstory passage that in one place feels wrong. It's too slow. It's slowing things down. But you move it and you put it in a different place and it's perfect.
Yeah.
But that's all part of developmental editing. Copy editing, on the other hand, is looking at your language, your consistency, the actual wording, the sentences on the page. Does it make sense? Are we grammatically correct? Are we using punctuation correctly? But at the same time, we might say that sentence is not grammatically correct, but it's perfect for this character.
Yes.
And that's what a copy editor is looking at, is they're looking at a whole range of the language side. So I think the best way to think about it is that you always start editing with the big picture, the big picture. And that's the developmental editing. And then getting smaller and closer and closer. And then when you're at the sentence level, you have moved into copy editing. That's at that point. There is a bridge between the two. Line editing is what they tend to call it. But exactly how the line editing is performed will depend on whether it's a developmental editor doing it or a copy editor doing it, because they're looking at different things. They're focusing on different aspects. So it is a big job.
It's a huge job. And it's also important that people find the right fit for them, so that they find people who understand what they're trying to do and can help them do it, but not write their book for them.
Yes, 100%. And it's not just finding the right one to help them do it, but it's also understanding your voice and your vision as well. So I have a little bit more freedom in terms of the vision to be able to mold and shape, because as a developmental editor, I'm looking more at that bigger picture stuff. And I can go through and say, you know what? Is it possible that maybe you could kill this character off here because this would really hurt for this main character? Trust me, it would work. It'd be fine. But I'm in a position I can make that suggestion. The copy editor, they might see it, but they're not in a position they can make that suggestion.
Right. It's and I think sometimes people skip the developmental editor phase, and it's always useful. And it can come from different folks or whatever, but it's always useful to have that fresh set of eyes who's going to work with you to try and make your book better.
Yeah. And I find for myself, so within my own editorial process, I used to go and hire developmental editors. I don't anymore. But I've also been writing, we're now 2026, and I started in 2008. So I've been writing fiction for almost 2 decades. That said, I will never miss the beta reader phase.
Yeah.
I will always use a beta reader, because even I'm too close to my writing. I won't see things that, I'll miss it. I will think it's on the page, and it turns out it's not.
Yes, because in your brain it was there, and you might have even written the 3 sentences, but you deleted them at some point. So they have no idea who Barbara is because you took all that stuff out. So and
you need that. So it's understand that the whole point about understanding whether you've got the backstory in the right place or how much backstory is necessary. The only reason I know what I'm doing with that is because my beta readers say, this doesn't make sense.
Right. When you said that you'll do what do you use to write? And the reason I bring this up is that when you said you don't write in order, and then you'll cut and you'll move. Do you do that in Word, or are you a Scrivener person?
I'm a Scrivener person.
Okay.
I am definitely a Scrivener person. When I was doing my PhD, I used a system that was called LaTeX. And LaTeX, the idea, it's designed for science, so you can easily do your formulas and all that sort of stuff in it. But you wrote each chapter in its own little file, and then you had like a master file that basically told you what chapters everything was supposed to be in. Scrivener works in exactly that same way. So it works for my brain quite well. So I can write individual scenes and I can write individual chapters in their own little files. And then I can go, oh, that's in the wrong spot. Move it.
Right.
But that said, if I move something, I still have to do what I call a top and tail edit. So a top and tail edit specifically, this is a very handy tool to have, is where you're reading the start of a chapter or the start of a scene, and you're reading the end of the chapter and the end of the scene and the next start of the chapter, start of the scene. So you're reading those connecting bits. You forget everything in between. So this is one of my latter passes that I do. This is not towards the beginning. It's in the order. I want it in this order, but I'm making sure that it's flowing from chapter to chapter, that we have that progressive flow. And because sometimes what will happen is that we'll end a paragraph or a scene, and we'll end that scene maybe one or two sentences too late. And it's like, oh, if I remove those sentences, then it's all good. But if we don't remove those sentences, it feels like it's a little bit like we're hopping a bit. It's not quite connecting. So by looking at just that transition, we are looking at how it segues from scene to scene to scene. And we get those, as a consequence, we can build in happily that he went and opened the door. What are you doing here? Next chapter.
Yes.
Build those cliffhangers so much more easily during that edit.
And when you're doing that edit, I find this fascinating. It's scene by scene, because then scenes can be a chapter, or you can have 3 scenes in a chapter. It's, but the scenes are contained units of something happening with the same people. And there's always a reason for the scene. Like if there's no reason, it doesn't serve the story, then the scene has to go. So like, even if you love it, it's got to go. So that's fascinating. You take your scenes, you read the first sentence or two, the last sentence or two, and then go on to the next one. And if it's flow in the story, it's working. If it isn't, something needs to be fixed.
Yeah, and it's normally, you can figure out how that scene transition has to work. An example I can give you, it's in the novel that I'm hoping to put out early next year. But there was my main character. She was in the ER doing emergency surgery on someone. And of course, the patient comes through and there's all that. And then she goes out to talk to the special force team that brought him in. And the original version of the ending, she was like, what the hell happened? And they carried on and sort of kind of explained everything. But it's like, no, she's just had surgery, emergency surgery. It actually ends better with what the hell happened, and then move all of that conversation about what actually happened and all that into the very next chapter. I didn't need to end the chapter with what was going on, because we had already had so much going on in that scene. But I didn't see that until I had the top and tail edit.
Fascinating. Yeah. So how, so my hands aren't sweating anymore thinking that you were doing all this in Word. So Scrivener is, and for Sisters in Crime members, there's a couple of webinars about Scrivener. There's a learning curve, but it's a really useful tool. I mean, you can surface use it. And
one of the reasons why I also love Scrivener is because I know that all of my research notes, all of my character notes, all of my plot notes, everything is all contained within this one project. And I'm not going, where is that file? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still going, where is that bit of information?
Right.
But I can structure it a little bit better, and I know it's in my project somewhere, so I can start using a keyword search if just the project, and I'm not hunting through a terabyte worth of files trying to find the one piece of information I need.
Yeah. And do you write in multiple points of view?
Sometimes. My default was multiple points of view when I first started. And I think that's actually quite common that we do tend to see stories from multiple point of view. But I gave myself the challenge, and it is a challenge. I always need to, I have I call learning challenges for every project. And this is how I keep myself motivated when I'm writing, because let's face it, we have no idea if a story is a success or not until it comes out. And even then, not for years until after it's come out. We have no idea. So I give myself these little learning challenges. And I gave myself, one of them was I wanted to write a story from a single perspective all the way through, which of course created a problem for my final climactic moment, because I had all these things that were going on in different parts of the facility, and my main character could only be in one spot. I was like, how am I going to do this? And in the end, I wrote the scene where my main character, she's safe, she's fine, and she's listening to the radio of what's going on in the different locations. I'm like, that solves that problem. Let's carry on. Because it's still from her perspective. In those final climax moments, it's too late to add another perspective. It's way too late.
Yes.
But it worked by doing the radio. And I know for one of my other novels, I set myself a challenge to write dual perspective, but I wanted each voice to be very distinctly different. So that way, when you come in and you're reading the chapter, you don't need that Veronica, Paul, or whatever tagging tends to happen, because that irritates me. I'm not a fan of that. I prefer to be able to read a chapter and go, oh, this is this voice. I know whose head I'm in.
Right.
That's what I prefer.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And I know with Dancing in the Purple Rain, again, it was single point of view, but I had to throw a curveball in it because I could, and decided to do first person.
Okay. So
first person is totally a new, like, oh, wow. Okay. We can't do that in first person. Okay. How are we going to do this?
Yeah. Especially for a thriller, because the protagonist is always going to know less than the reader.
Yeah.
But they're truly going to know less than everybody else, but they have to figure it out. So, yikes. Yeah.
That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely different subgenres that are better, like cozy novels are better as, not better, but they lend themselves to first person because it's just, that's the way you tell the story. But for thrillers, that really is a challenge.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the way you decide as to what's going to work is experiment.
Yeah.
Just experiment. Sometimes the experiment comes back and you're like, you're not very helpful. Because I know with my default narrative is third person, deep point of view. That is what I prefer to read. It's what I prefer to write. I'm starting to get a taste of first person narratives, dare I say it, because one of my favorite authors, she writes in first person a lot. So I'm starting to get a taste of that. But when I was writing Dancing in the Purple Rain specifically, the whole way through, I just like, would this be better? I don't know. Would this be better? And so I took a couple of scenes, and you can't take just the first scene. Yeah. You have to take something else that is a little bit more intensive. It might be emotionally intensive. It might be action intensive. It needs to be intensive, something a little bit more intensive, and move it to the different perspectives. Maybe write it from a different character. Maybe write it third person, first person. Play around and then get your reading buddies to go, hey, what's better? And when they come back and say they read the same, you're like, you're not helpful. You are so not helpful.
Calling someone else. Well, and this is, book coaching and developmental editing. This is part of the conversation, which also makes you good at what you're doing because you can say to people, there's no one way to do this. You got to make it harder on yourself. Now, switching from first to third or third to first after you've written the novel is a nightmare. Ask me how I know this, but it's because you're going to be at the final proofs and find her that should be me. I mean, it's like a nightmare. But this is the joy of discovery. It's like, what's the best way to write this story?
Yeah. There is no one way. There is no one way. The one way that doesn't work is the way that doesn't work for the writer. Because I don't know about you, but I have found that if it's not gelling for the writer, if the writer is not feeling the emotion when they're writing it, then the reader is just going to go, nah.
Yeah.
And they're not going to feel it. It's a weird phenomenon. I can't explain it because I don't even think any of us understand how it happens. Right. But if the if the writer is like in tears when they are writing that scene, even the first draft, it is there all the way through. And the reader will feel those tears. The reader will get it. It's a weird phenomenon. So we as writers have to feel it.
And you also, sorry to interrupt you, when writers are chasing a trend, so, all of a sudden they're like, oh, thrillers are really in, but I like writing traditional mysteries, but I'm going to write a thriller. If you don't like them, now it's one thing to expand your repertoire, and I think that's a great thing. But romance is really in, so I'm going to write a romance. But if you don't like romances or you don't read them, don't do that. You're not going to write a good book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Romantasy at the moment. Like I am a fan of fantasy, and you're seeing this massive trend. And I think we saw this with romantic suspense at one point.
Yes.
Where you had this massive trend where romance subplots were actually becoming a very dominant part of the story. But it's always going to resonate with me. I was at a conference many, many years ago, and there was an acquisition editor that was there. She was talking about romantic suspense specifically, because this was at the time that romantic suspense was at its height. And she said that if you can take that romance subplot out of your story and the story still stands, as in, like, you might have to do a couple of tweaks here and there to make it flow, but the story still stands, then you never had a romantic suspense in the first place.
Oh, that's great advice. Isn't that great?
And that's the reality of what we're facing. So, I'm of the frame of mind in terms of romantic subplots, because we're seeing a lot of this really ill-gotten advice of saying, oh, put romance in it, put sex in it. And I'm like, no, that's not what sells. What sells is the emotional engagement.
Yes.
It always has to come from an emotional engagement. And, instead of trying to shoehorn in a romantic subplot or a sex scene, if your brain, and you're trying to shoehorn it in, your brain knew it didn't belong there in the first place. Why are you trying to put it there? Right.
And the people who love that genre are not going to be satisfied reading your book. So what do you, yeah. And there are so many books right now that are melding and mashing together, as you were talking about with yours, right? And I love that. I love that it's sort of you're on a ride, and here you go, and here are these elements and the tropes, and we all understand what we're going to do, but you're on a ride. So, just buckle up and let's go. I love that mashing up.
Yeah, and in terms of that mashing up, I think we have gone past the point where it was, this is a mystery, this is a police procedural, this is cozy, this is a fantasy, this is a thriller, this is I think that era is gone. And we have gotten to this point now where writers write the way they kind of want. And if they want, oh, I want a bit of romance, I want a bit of crime, I want a bit of fantasy, maybe throw in this element, why not? Let's do it.
Yeah.
If you can make it work, then do it.
That said, when you're first starting out, don't make it too complicated because just writing a book is hard. So don't do that to yourself.
I'm going to add a caveat to that.
Okay.
I'm going to add a caveat to that.
Well, 15-book PhD vacation, I'm sure you have a caveat.
Okay. So my caveat about that is that if you have this massive idea and it is a very complex idea, make notes. You have my permission. Even if you're a new writer, make your notes. Because if you don't, you're going to forget. You're going to forget 100% about what it is. But be prepared to accept the reality that you might not have the writing skills yet to actually do that story justice.
Right.
You may be in a position where you need to, once you've got that idea down and you've written something, you may need to go, you know what, I'm going to try something simpler to learn on. Because you don't want to be learning on this big, huge opus baby that is over the top. Right. You want to be learning on smaller pieces. So that's why short stories are really, really helpful, because you can take these little tiny vignettes and they only have to be 1,000 words, 10,000 words, maybe tops, and you can learn. Mm-hmm. And that's why I give myself a learning craft. So one of the short stories I wrote, it was my first time I ever used a first-person voice. I was learning. I have another short story because I was experimenting and went, how does second person work? And I experimented with second person. But it was a short story, and it's a lot easier to experiment and learn on these shorter vignettes than it is to do the whole opus.
Yes.
So accept that you may not have the writing skills yet. I have the writing skills now, but we are now over a decade. We're over 15 years later, and I now have the skills. I'm just having too much fun, way too much fun, blowing people up.
To go back to a fantasy, it's like, okay, wait.
I'm just having way too much fun. How many bodies can I hide today? And, I can use that location. I'm just having too much fun.
Yeah.
But I will go back to it. I will eventually go back to it because the story is still calling to me.
Yeah. And now you can fix it.
And now I can fix it.
Yeah, that's an amazing.
It's still going to be probably 15 books. But
hey, So as we're wrapping up, you and I could obviously talk for hours, but why? So you wear the hats. You're the writer, but you're also the coach and the teacher and the somebody. So for you, and I love that you talk about your own perspective. I think that that's a fabulous gift that you're giving folks of like, I screwed this up, so here's what I learned. So you're going to have to screw it up to learn, but I can help you fix it afterwards. But what would you tell a writer? I mean, writing and publishing are two different journeys. We haven't really talked about publishing.
Writing and publishing are very much two different journeys.
And you control your writing.
Yeah.
Publishing is it's not completely out of your control depending on what you choose, but it's a different beast. So you can't, I don't think you should equate your success as a writer by your publishing journey.
I don't think you should either, and it's getting harder. For those who are heading down traditional publication roads, I think it's actually gotten harder since COVID. The publishing houses have really pulled right back, and they're less willing to take a chance on a new writer. And then, of course, you throw AI into the mix, and we're not even going to discuss the mess that's associated with AI. But you throw that into the mix, and it's totally changed the landscape. What was pre-COVID, so what was in 2019 versus today, they're not the same industry, not the same landscape.
No.
That said, writing is still writing. And that's why I think having these learning goals, I think, is a better measure of where we're going. In terms of understanding where to go and how to do things, yeah, you need, regardless what path you do, you need that quality. You need the good story. Let's start there. I have seen, so I was a judge very recently in one of the New Zealand competitions, and it totally gave me an appreciation for what agents and acquisition editors are going through. But I saw in amongst this competition, which was supposed to be books that were already published, I saw books that should never have been published because they weren't ready. And I think that's what's happened is we've gotten to this point where we're sort of jumping the gun. We're not ready. We're in a hurry to get to that finish line. And I don't think we should. Take your time.
Take your time. Yeah. And I think I love what you're saying. You need to be able to tell somebody what your book is about in 2 sentences. And so it needs
and
to
even
be,
I struggle with that.
Well, we all struggle, but it's also like it doesn't matter that it's a future or it's, it doesn't, all the stuff doesn't matter. It's about, here's the person, here's their problem, and here's the journey. Like, you don't tell us what happened. Just, it's got to boil down to that. And I don't know that everyone always wraps their arms around that clearly enough to know
and the stakes. And understanding the stakes as well. And in terms of saying understanding the stakes, if you're writing a romance saying, oh, love is at stake, it's a romance.
Right.
They're going to end up together at the end of the story. We know they will. So that's not the stakes.
Right.
Thrillers. I'm sorry. Life is always on the line.
Right.
You can't say life is on the line. I'm sorry. No. Something more has to be there. And I think that comes down to understanding your genre, understanding what you're reading. So, yeah, you had mentioned, someone writing mystery and then deciding thrillers are getting popular. Let's write a thriller. And it's like, if you don't read thrillers, you don't understand how a thriller works.
Right.
That's why I don't write romance, because I don't read them.
But that also reading a bunch of thrillers and then taking them apart, reading them like a writer and say, okay, how did that happen? I just read this, I blew through it. Like Michael Crichton, you just said that you want to go back and reread Rising Sun after 25 years or whatever. Longer than that at this point. But yeah, because you have a memory of it. And also it's worth saying, how did he do that? Like, how did he craft this story?
Yeah.
Jurassic Park. That's like a big science thing, but that's not what it's about. Right? I mean, it's about humanity. Yeah.
And reading, and that's the other aspect, is learning to read like a writer, or more appropriately, an editor, is a different skill than just reading. And I swear, becoming a writer and learning all this stuff has totally ruined my ability to read just casually. Totally ruined it.
But don't you find when you find the book that you get lost in?
Yes.
It's an extra dream. It's like, I didn't pay attention to the transitions. I just read the book.
It's such a treat. And that's why I've got one of my favorite writers at the moment is Mary Robinette Kowal, because she writes alternate histories. In fact, one of her latest books was a crime, but it was set in space. And it had this whole feel of the old cruise ships from the 1950s. That's the feel that was there. But it was set in space, and it was a murder mystery. She had to solve this crime. And I was just like, I am like gobbling this thing up. And I'm just loving this voice. I love it. Yeah.
And then you'll go back and you'll reread it as a writer and say, okay, I loved it. This is great. How did she do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Good This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a member of Sisters in Crime. And well, let's talk about community and the importance of community for writers, because we definitely don't know that. In 2008, when you sat down while working on your PhD to start your 15-book, fantasy, you didn't you might have, but
I didn't have a community then.
It is to find other writers.
Yeah, it's very important. Part of the reason it's important is because only other writers understand the roller coaster and the obsession, because writing does become an obsession. Our family, they want us to be happy, but they don't get the obsession. They don't get the roller coaster. They just don't understand, unless they happen to be a creative type themselves. If they are, then they will get it. But if they're not going to understand. So we need to have that community, because they'll cry with us. They'll cheer with us. They will be there. And how you find that community it's different for everyone. Some people will have to have an online community because of where they are. I mean, I've got a large online community because of where I am in the world. There's only so many writers in New Zealand. And there's only so many writers in my home city. But I also have the community here as well, where I can go and talk to them and I can say, hey guys, I'm really struggling with this aspect. And it's not just for the writing as well. Like, I reached out to my local community very recently going, okay guys, taxes, how do I deal with this? What do I need to do? It's because they've been through it. They understand. And I can't go to the US market for that, because our New Zealand taxes are completely different. But it's oh my God, guys, this is throwing a curveball. What do I do? This is driving me nuts. And this is why you need the community, because it gives you your cheerleaders. It gives you your support. It gives you your tech support going, guys, this program's not working. It's supposed to work. Why am I using it wrong? If you're self-publishing, Amazon keeps changing things.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're the ones, it's the community that's going to know. They're going to be the ones in the know, not your family and friends. So yeah, the more people you can build in the network, the better off you are. That said, you will have different portions of the network that you will use for different things.
Yeah.
So for Sisters in Crime, I use Sisters in Crime primarily for understanding the crime aspects of story and understanding the police procedural and the legal stuff, because, that's kind of what we're really good at. But there's a Facebook group that's called Trauma Fiction that's filled with medical personnel. That was like a candy store when I needed to understand that. So you have your different facets of your local community for different things, but definitely make sure you connect. Don't stay silent. Don't be 100% a lurker.
Yeah.
Get in there.
Yeah.
And say things, even if it is, that's so cool. And it's motivational as well. I remember years ago, Hank Philippi Ryan was on the Guppies, in the Guppies forum, which is one of the chapters in Sisters in Crime. And she had posted a message in there going, I finally understand what my editor wanted me to do. I have unlocked it. It now is all getting written. Do you realize how motivational that was to see Hank Philippi Ryan saying that she was stuck and then suddenly got it?
Yeah.
I was like, so it's not just me.
No. And it's a generosity of people. The crime fiction community is, for the most part, an incredibly kind and supportive community. And it is the generosity of people saying, yeah, no, I didn't, I was stuck. I didn't know what to do, and then doing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And having that, but you wouldn't, if you are just lurking and you're not actually actively taking part, you wouldn't see those little nuggets of motivation just sitting there.
Yeah.
You need to get in there.
Yeah. I love that. Judy, thank you so much for a fabulous conversation.
I'm so glad we managed to finally get the time thing sorted out.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us today. Sisters in Crime is about community. We were founded to advocate for women crime writers, and we continue that mission by fighting for equity in the crime writing community. Sisters in Crime is an international, inclusive organization for all who write and love crime fiction, mystery, thrillers, and suspense. Join us at sistersincrime.org and make sure you subscribe to this podcast.